The Utah Jazz get absolutely blasted in Los Angeles by the Lakers. Why? What does it mean? And how did it happen? Next on Locked On Jazz. Pow.
You are Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked On Jazz. The Jazz go to Los Angeles with a chance to stun everyone in the group and get blasted early, often, and for 48 straight minutes in a complete whitewash in Los Angeles. Two reasons why the Jazz had such a bad night we'll look at. If things are going to straighten up for the Jazz, guard play has to improve. We love Keontae, but guard play has to improve. And defense might matter more than ever in the NBA, and we're not particularly good at it. We'll talk about those things all on today's show as the Jazz get ready to play the Portland Trailblazers today in Portland. It's not night as I record this, but I just gave you the Portland landscape for those of you watching on YouTube. I am David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider, and this is Locked On Jazz. It's your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen every day. We are free and available on all podcasting apps as well as on YouTube. So thank you very much for joining us. Love the comment section that goes on. DLock09 is always how you can reach me on any platform, TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, or on the X. DLock09 is where you can find me. Thank you very much for all the everydayers, particularly on a day like today. It's easy to just step away, but that's not what the journey is to eventually getting this franchise back to the winning ways that we want it to be and on the route to a championship for the Jazz. So last night, the Jazz just get massacred. It was ugly early and often. And the signature of this team has usually been, quite honestly, that happens and then they work their way back in the game, and we're getting late in the second quarter and Ron Boone's like, all right, I think you can get this under 10 before halftime. You kind of feel like you're back into the game, and then all of a sudden it was 20 and it just kind of kept piling on. So what happened? Well, first thing is they just shot it terribly. But I think there's more to it than just shooting it terribly. And if we look at some of the numbers for a second here, and I always think kind of quarter by quarter numbers, even though it's a super small sample size, can give you a little bit of an idea of what happened. So first quarter, the Jazz offensive rating was a 63. And their defensive rating was at 118.5. So that defensive rating is not good, but we're not very good defensively. That's kind of our average. Second quarter was a 92 offensive rating and a 115.4 defense rating. So we're actually semi-okay. The Lakers are not a very good half-court team. So in the first half, our offensive rating was a 77.4. The league average is about a 112, 113 right now. The Indiana Pacers after last night are at 122. The greatest offense ever was a 120. The third quarter, it doesn't really change that much except for defensively, we just disappear. And it's almost at this point, I kind of throw the game out. We're down 20. And when I see these two numbers, this is actually where I just kind of go, okay, whatever. And that is our offensive rating was a 142 and their offensive rating was a 167. Did we just become an all-star game? It's 20-point game, blowout. Nope. All right, everyone just make everyone look good. That's a little bit of how I feel at that point. It was you never threatened. Omer Yurtseven, I don't want to discredit Omer Yurtseven. He was terrific and came in with great energy, and I think has certainly gained the confidence of Will Hardy after that performance. But that third quarter where we kind of look a little better, part of me is So a few things happened. Will already talked about one of them is just the physicality needed to play the Lakers. The Lakers are big and they're long and they're physical. Rui Hachimura is a big dude, right? AD, LeBron, obviously big dudes. All of their guys, even D'Angelo Russell's a point guard, it's pretty big. So you have to have a physicality to what you're doing. Listening to Tim Lacombe on Jazz pre-halftime and postgame, and then Jason Terry at halftime, it's clear that, in the simplest terms, without that, and then adding Will Hardy's postgame, the simplest term is that without that physicality, the Jazz kind of took the easy way out. Okay. And so what do I mean by that? Well, what you've got to do on the Lakers is, so they're big and strong, is when you're driving the basketball, you've got to expect contact, be willing to play off the contact. Now, this is not our strength, right? This is when we tried to do this early in the year. We started throwing the ball around everywhere. So, I understand that this is not necessarily what we're great at. And so instead, what ended up happening is we ended up taking a ton of threes that were, because we didn't have that physicality to drive and bend their defense, that were just kind of these one pass, no pass possessions instead of kind of fighting the fight. And that to me is the, I think it's learning lessons. You've got a young team, you've got a group that just hasn't done a lot of this. And I do think some of that's having a rookie point guard. Like, I think there is some of that. Last night, we got 33 catch and shoot threes. We made 9 of them. That's 27% on catch and shoot threes. So there is a little level here where, like, that's just that's unusually bad. We came into the game, I think, as the 3rd best catch and shoot team in league. Like, if we don't make a bunch of off the bounce threes, that doesn't surprise me. We're 29th in the league in off the bounce 3-point shooting. But when you play the Lakers, they're going to go to the free throw line more than you do. You can take that cynically or however you want to take it. The fact is that they're one of the teams, league leaders in going to the free throw line and one of the league leaders in not putting people at the free throw line. So you kind of know that that's who they're going to be. And so you're going to have to play off that. And the way you take that is they don't shoot a lot of threes and they don't make a lot of threes. So you're going to have to win the 3-point battle by a lot. So getting 33 threes off and 40 threes off is great. And we're a pretty good catch and shoot team. Like, the fact that we were 2 of 10 on off the bounce threes doesn't surprise me. We're 29th in the league in off the bounce 3-point shooting. But the fact that we couldn't make a catch and shoot three just means, to me, one thing, you could have just not had it. Like, LA could have got you. Like, the setting, coming off the double back, back-to-back, whatever it might be. Or the double overtime. You just didn't have it. Or you just weren't in your rhythm. You weren't physical enough, as Will Hardy talked about in postgame. You weren't making the extra pass because that's actually hard. And the Lakers make it a little hard. The Lakers last year were a great defensive team. They've never been a very good offensive team. They were a great defensive team last year when they got better. And the Jazz just couldn't fight that. Now, there is, and we'll talk about this coming up a little bit, there is, the Jazz half-court offense has been bad for 2 games in a row. It's a little disconcerting, actually, and it's worth talking about. But I think the bigger picture here, we just, there's a few things, and I think you talk about, okay, growth and learning. Like, okay, now the next time they're playing a team this physical, how do they address it? The next time they can't make shots, how do they address it? And that's kind of where this team is in what's going on. I'm not about to back off something I've always said, which is, I really, really do believe that, like, I'm watching the standings very closely right now. I think they really matter. I think this is, like, Boston's the best team in the NBA. They're 11-3. It's really clear. Like, Milwaukee's handled this better than I thought. Oklahoma City, like, I cannot believe they're one of the 3 best shooting teams in the league. I thought they weren't going to be able to shoot. So I think you really do look at where teams are right now, and it's real. And, like, we're 12th in the West at 4-10. We're 2.5 games behind the Warriors, 2 games behind the Clippers. There seems to be a real separation right there between those teams and us in the opening part of the 14 games of the season. I think we have to be really honest about that. And so there's growth here you're looking at. Obviously, Lowry, we've talked about as a leadership, Keontae getting all this experience, but then there's group growth. There's how do we deal when it goes wrong? How when your shots aren't going? Can you add physicality inside of a game when you get knocked off the block like they did last night? And the answer last night was no. Can the answer be yes moving forward? I think that's, it's a very legitimate question. Today's show, so Will, the Jazz half-court offense is a problem that, like, it's concerning. We'll talk about it. And quite honestly, we've got to get better point guard play. Like, I like a lot of what we're seeing out of Keontae. But Keontae and Talen's last 6 games since Keontae's gone in the starting lineup, if we're going to survive and not get run, we've got to get better point guard play. And I'll talk about that coming up here as we continue here on Locked On Jazz. Today's show is brought to you by our really good friends over at Intercap Lending. there's a bunch of parts of Intercap Lending that I'm super proud that they're a part of Locked On Jazz and our sponsor. One of them is their community involvement. I mean, as we hit to Thanksgiving, Brock Worthen and his group does just amazing work in the community with schools and the rest to make sure that, our community is a better place. And I think that's a super neat thing. And then Steve Carter, who, if you're an everydayer, you've heard about before, this guy truly is the most incredible customer service guy I've ever been around. And so it is my privilege to tell you about Steve Carter and have you know that he's available to you as a Locked On everydayer. You have your own personal loan officer and Steve Carter over at Intercap Lending. And the work he puts in is just, it's marvelous. He's done 2 loans for me. He's done Carl Weinstein, our COO of Locked On. He's done a bunch of Locked On people, and the reviews are universally always great. So it's a tough time right now if you're in the lending world or if you need to get it done, but sometimes the world tells you that you have to. That's where our great friends over at Intercap Lending come in, is to have you take care of you and help you out through this tumultuous time and put you into the right position when it is time for you to make your next, maybe to adjust and the rates come back, all that kind of stuff. So give Steve Carter a call. Steve's number for you. You can call him directly at 385-800-8528, or you can just email me at dlocks09@gmail.com and I'll set you up with your VIP meeting. Intercap Lending, 385-800-8528, or Intercap Lending, NMLS number 190465. It's best just email me at dlock09 and we'll take care of you and make sure that you get the VIP meeting that you deserve as a Locked On listener. Today's show is also brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is the number one sports book in America. It is the official sports book of Locked On. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 moneyline bet win. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. Spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/locked on. The in-season tournament lines are getting pretty interesting as Indiana and LA have advanced in the NBA. Big college football NFL week ahead as well. Tonight, the Utah Jazz play the Portland Trailblazers, and the line on this one is Jazz by 3 with an over-under of 226.5. Minnesota's a 4.5-point favorite in a big matchup with the 76ers tonight. That's probably the marquee game of the night, though the Kings at New Orleans could be a good one as well. And the Pacers and Hawks go back on the court tonight after massive games last night. That's all at FanDuel.com/locked on. So I'm not placing blame on last night. Last night was a collective effort, physicality, lack of shooting, lack of oomph. They have 2 of the 10 best players in the world. Both, the last 3 losses, the 2 best players on the floor play for the other team both times, right? And Lowry was off last night. Wow, I've never seen him miss by quite as much as he did. So our half-court offense has been pretty good this year. In the last 2 games, our half-court offense has not been good. And there's a few things that are going on. One is our pace of play is way down since Keontae became the point guard. Keontae walks it up, and we're the slowest pace of play team in the NBA right now. I think in regards to Will Hardy and his coaching staff, that's not what he prefers, but I would also tell you that I'm going to guess there are things that they're going to work on right now. And that one is, okay, we'll take care of that at some point. Let's get him comfortable now, right? This is a big jump. But our half-court offense against Phoenix was an 80, which was in the 9th percentile. And we survived that game because we had 48% of the offensive rebounds, which was insanity. And because we got out in transition a ton in that game. Then last night, our offense, which is contrary to what we've been doing since Keontae became the point guard, we've really slowed down. Some of this is by design, by the way. We want to be a structured team after makes and run after misses. And we've done it up until recently. We've done a pretty good job of running after misses and being a structured team after makes. The Lakers game, our offensive rating was a 76.4. So in our last 2 games, the offensive rating has been in the 9th and the 6th percentile. Now, we're brilliant on the offensive glass, and that covers it up. But that's a tough one for the Jazz to overcome. Is you have to be a little bit better in the half-court offense. Since the starting lineup change, the guard efficiency is not great. So Keontae, since starting 6 games ago now, is shooting 30% from the field and 25% from 3. And Talon is shooting 40% from the field and 30% from 3. And that's really, we're playing like some 3-guard lineups, but if you really get right into it right now, that's truthfully that's our point guard play. It might be oversimplifying, but Colin's really not playing any point. We're not really playing JC at any point. So if you take the last 6 games and you look at the minutes played of Talon and Keontae, you get awfully close to the 48 minutes that is point guard. And that's tough. Like, they're averaging 21.6 rebounds and 12 assists, so it's not all lost. But it's hard right now. They're averaging, between the two of them, they average about 50 minutes a game. So that's kind of it. And so between the two of them, they're shooting 7 of 20 each night, and about 2 of 10 from 2.5, 25%, 2.5 to 10 from 3, like right around that range. Like, and only 5 free throws. 11. They're doing a good job distributing. 11 assists and just 4.5 turnovers. But that's hard. Like, if you, in a day and age where the game is just so much who the ball handler is and what they're doing. I mean, we watched Phoenix when the game got late, and what do? They played a 2-man game between Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, and you watched last night, and it's LeBron James, Anthony Davis pick and rolls. Like, our guards are really important. We don't play a lot of pick and roll. We play some off-ball stuff, but your point guards, it's kind of what the league is, right? It's a ball handler league right now. And so that one's going to be hard for us to be as good as we need to be offensively until we can get some efficiency out of that position. From specifically to Keontae, I'm not going to sound any alarm bells on 6 games as a starter with everything that's got to be going on through his head, shooting 30% and 25% from 3. It's actually Scoot Henderson, if you look at who was the number 3 pick of this draft and was picked, kind of went to the G League to practice yesterday. I don't think we'll see him tonight. He shot 35% and 10% from 3 in his games before he got hurt. I'm certainly not about to tell you that I'm worried about Scoot Henderson. Like, I think Scoot Henderson didn't shoot it great. Now, the only thing I would say is that both Keontae and Scoot Henderson did not shoot it great in their season last year. Keontae, I think, was 39% from the field and 30% from 3 at Baylor. I generally just take college numbers and throw them out. And Scoot Henderson's was in the G League where he's a kid playing against adults. So I just kind of throw them out. But they are there. Like, I don't think you can ignore that neither of them were efficient shooters last year. I thought this whole last draft was going to be really, really interesting because I didn't think anybody in the draft could shoot. Right? If you guys, for the everydayers out there who kind of followed the conversations throughout the draft, everyone was coming on our shows talking about how great this draft is. It's the greatest draft of all time. And I had Victor like, okay, he's great. And then I really wondered, like, the Thompson twins are super world-class athletes, but they can't shoot. And so from Keontae's standpoint, I think this is a draft class universally, and maybe this is where the game is, where the kids come super ready to play. They understand the game. Keontae's got this incredible feel. You can tell he's completely comfortable amongst NBA players. He doesn't look shell-shocked at all. He doesn't look sped up. But maybe shooting's the thing. And then, frankly, I've said this as well, LeBron and Durant, who are 2 of the greatest offensive players in the history of the game, the only player ever scored 39,000 points, now the 11th leading scorer. I think, if I'm correct, Durant shot 41% as a rookie, and LeBron shot 42%. So it shouldn't be super stunning. If you look right now, Victor's shooting 42% and 27% from 3. That's not good. Scoot, as I mentioned, is at 35 and 9. Amon Thompson is at 41% in 4 games. He's at 41% and 18% from 3. Asur Thompson, who's playing a ton, I think he leads all rookies in minutes played, is at 44% from the field, which is good, but 14% from 3. Anthony Black doesn't shoot much. He's at 48% and 25% from 3. That's a real problem because he couldn't shoot in college. Bilal Coulibaly is actually shooting it fine, as is Cason Wallace. Cason Wallace is kind of a crazy 63% and 54%. Jerice Walker's barely playing. In Indiana, I think he's played like 40 minutes all year. Jed Howard's played like 20 minutes, so those aren't. Grady Dick, who's trying to get some time out there, is shooting 27% and 24% from three. Jordan Hawkins, who's supposed to be one of the best shooters in the draft, 38% and 36% from three. So Keontae's overall 36 and 29 just kind of fits right into the mold of what everyone else is doing. Jaime Jaquez and Cason Wallace and Brandon Przenski are the ones who are kind of somewhere else. Marcus Sasser too. So Przenski was a senior, Sasser was a senior, and Jaquez, I think, was a senior, or at least close, out of UCLA. Those three all seem to be a little bit all right. They all have play. They also all have 3 or 4 more years, and they're ready to play. So I'm not. There's no alarm bell going on for me on Keontae in his shooting. I think that's. I mean, it's got to. It can't be 30%, 25 for the next 50 games. And I'm not. And this was actually like the one concern about having him start early is you go 2-10 and he's shooting 30%. Like this was the legitimate concern that you have when you throw him out there. And it may be coming to fruition a little bit. I think he'll be fine. He has the disposition and he has the gumption and I think he's understanding the burden and the professionalism that it takes to do this on a nightly basis. But I think from a standpoint of like, will the Jazz play better and are they going to win more? Like, oh, well, that's hard. Like, if we're going to play better and win more, you've got to have guard play that's better than this. And Portland's finding that out too, right? Portland's been playing Skylar Mays and at the point guard without Scoot Henderson, without Anthony Simons. And I mean, they looked a little bit better last night against Phoenix. They were down 19 and then battled back with Malcolm Brogdon, but it's hard. So, Talon and Keontae are being asked to do an awful lot. Both are young. Both have not played a lot of point guard. And if they're combining to shoot 35% at that position and taking a bunch of possessions, it's super hard to overcome that. And that's a little bit where, the half-court offense being as bad as it's been the last 2 nights is interesting. All right, Jazz and the Blazers tonight, but I have a really interesting trend. I'm stunned by this that's going on in the NBA, and I really can't wait to share it with you. So I'm kind of flabbergasted when I found it. So I have that coming up for you next, and then I'll get you ready. There's a really fun in a kind of, how should I say this? Fun in a kind of masochistic way in the matchup about the Blazers and the Portland Trailblazers tonight. And we'll have that for you as we continue here on Locked On Jazz, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Our partners over at eBay Motors know about winning, and it's time to let you win in fantasy basketball because eBay Motors has teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. Whether you're preparing for a daily draft or scouting the waiver wire, each week we're going to provide you with players that are guaranteed fit to your roster in the eBay Motors Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week because eBay Motors has the guaranteed fit for you and your car on their site. And Josh Lloyd is the number 1 fantasy basketball host in the country. So they have combined. Here we go. Are you ready? Here are some choices. Kyle Anderson with Minnesota with Jaden McDaniels out for the week. He should boost his productivity. It might be a good solid pick who's usually very, very productive. Santi Aldama has replaced Marcus Smart in the lineup as Memphis is really shorthanded, and he has been surprising so far. Don't know if you noticed, but former top 5 pick Jaden Ivey's back in the starting lineup in Detroit. So there's an opportunity for you. And Alex Caruso is back in the starting lineup, despite Billy Donovan saying he doesn't like to do it because it bothers their minutes too much. There's desperation in Chicago, and Caruso could give you some things before, as Josh Lloyd says, he inevitably gets hurt. Those are all from Josh Lloyd, Kyle Anderson, Santi Aldama, Jaden Ivey, and Alex Caruso. All possibilities for you. It's all eBay Motors guaranteed fit with over 122 million parts for your number 1 ride or die. You can make sure your car rides smoothly. Brake kits, LED, highlight, roof racks, bumpers, whatever. Our eBay guaranteed fit. It's guaranteed to fit your ride for the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, eBay Motors gives you great prices, so you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at eBay Motors. eBay guaranteed fit only to U.S. customers. eBay Motors and Josh Lloyd for your guaranteed win of the week. Your guaranteed fit from eBay Motors. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. I have it up in my room right now. Locked On Sports Today, the first ever 24/7 sports stream on YouTube. We're pretty excited about it. It is up. It is rolling. I'm watching Locked On ACC right now with Kenton Gibbs and Candace Cooper. It's just a great run from like one of the big shows to the next. The other day, the Steelers fired the offense coordinator. Locked On Steelers was up on the show. So throw it up on your television while you're at work. Locked On Sports Today. It's available on the News On app right now, as well as for you at YouTube. Go grab it. We're super proud of it and excited. All right. Let's start with Jazz Blazers. Tonight is the 30th ranked offense in the NBA in the Portland Trail Blazers against the half-court offense and overall offense against the 30th ranked half-court defense in the Jazz. So the league average in half-court offense is a 97, so about 1 point of possession in the half-court. So 0.97, little off that. The Blazers' offense in the half-court is an 84 for the season. I mean, it's 13 points below average. It's catastrophically bad. The Jazz defense is 9 points worse than league average. It's the worst in the league, but it's not as bad. So that's the matchup tonight. It's the Blazers offense, which is for the season a 104.8, 30th in the NBA by a large margin, against the Jazz defense, which for the entirety, we're very good in transition defense. Will Hardy's figured something out in transition defense. We're 8th best in the league in transition defense. They really do a great job of protecting the rim in transition defense. And it's, even though they're a heavy offensive rebounding team, they're still very good in transition defense. And so the 8th best transition defense, that holds our defense so it's 26th instead of 30th. But our overall defense is a 120.6, and their overall offense is a 104.8. I am not sure I have ever seen a 16-point per 100 possession difference between two teams' averages. Like, it is, I don't know who wins this. What happens when a putrid offense plays a bad defense? That is the craze. That is the insanity of the matchup tonight. They're 30th in the league in three-point shooting at 31.9. I hope this isn't the night where they suddenly make shots. Their effective field goal percentage is below 50% for the season, which is just like incomprehensible. But we allow, this is crazy too. So their effective field goal percentage is 49%. We allow 57. I'm not sure I've ever seen an 8-point difference in a game. Part of the reason I've never seen these things is because I've seen very few offensive teams as bad as what the Portland Trail Blazers are right now. Both teams offensive rebound a lot because there's a lot of opportunities, and that's how they have to survive. The Portland Trail Blazers, though, and this is where we should win the game tonight. The Portland Trail Blazers are the 29th ranked defensive rebounding team in the league, and we're the second best offensive rebounding team in the league. That's going to be an effort. Both teams played last night. Both teams traveled. They got blasted by Phoenix. We got blasted by the Lakers. So we'll see how this plays out tonight, but it should be an interesting matchup in that. All right, here is something I want you to keep an eye on. I do this all the time with you because I love the league and I'm obsessed with and follow it all the time. By the way, the fourth quarter late game watch last night of Atlanta, Indiana was bonkers. Basically, nobody played a center. So it became 5 out. There was so much space on the floor. You couldn't guard anyone, and then no one could miss a shot. Like, it was insanity. Buddy Hield hit everything. All right, I've never seen this before. I've never, ever seen this before in the league, and it's wild. The top 10 defensive teams in the NBA, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, and 10. 9 of the top 10 defensive teams in the NBA are the top 9 teams in the NBA right now by differential. The only team in the top 10 defensively is Toronto is 8th, and they're not. The other 9 best defensive teams in the NBA are the 9 best differential teams in the league. Only 5 of the top offensive teams and only 2 of the top 5 offensive teams are in the top 9 differential. All 5 of the top 5 defensive teams are in the top 7. So the top 5 defensive teams are in the top 7 in differential. Orlando's the number 1 defensive team. They're 7th best team in the league. Minnesota's 2. They're the 4th best team in the league. Boston's 3. They're the number 1 team in the league. Oklahoma City's 4. They're the number 3 team in the league. Houston's number 5, and they're the number 5 team in the league. Clippers are the 6th best defense in the league. They have the 8th best differential. Clippers will be fine. New York is the 7th best defense in the league. They have the 6th best differential. 8, I mentioned, is Toronto, and they're not in this. 9 is Denver. They're 9th in differential. And 10th is Philly, and they're the 2nd best differential. I've never seen this so one-sided. It's like everything we know about this league is it's become an offensive league, and now all of a sudden, if you're good defensively, that dictates winning more than any other statistic out there. Is this because everyone is so good offensively, and so therefore you actually have to be able to defend now? And then defensive players become, whatever defensive player is today, becomes somehow more important? I don't know. I think this one's really interesting and worth keeping an eye on, and keeping an eye on all season long, and then also wondering what it means for the playoffs. All right, if you haven't had a chance, Holly Rowe did her podcast with Will Hardy, and I'm going to be watching it today, so I hope you get a chance to do so too. It's the Front Row podcast on Jazz Plus with Holly. Go grab that. In the meantime, thank you very much. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. I probably have not taken enough time today to tell you how thankful I am for all of you who have helped me build Locked On and be a part of this show and the everydayers and who you are. It means the world to me, and I greatly, greatly appreciate that. I'll send out a note tomorrow to probably appropriately say that. And the fact that I get to call your team's games and share it with me means everything to me in the world. So thank you. Thank you very much. Jazz and the Blazers tonight. Ron and I will be with you. Thanks so much. And now I will send you over to the new 24/7 sports stream. First ever national sports stream on Locked On Sports today. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving.